Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad. We're talking about English literature in Malaysia with K.S. Maniam, because well-known novelist, and also Malachi Edwin Vethamani, who is a short story writer, poet, and also academic. Put together this new collection of short stories. Actually, it tells you a history of the country through short stories. Now, I do want to ask you about writing for the world, because English literature is, in some ways, a global literature, right? And there are many expressions. Some of it we define in national terms, Indian writing in English, so on, so on, so forth. And also, like in this year, at the Georgetown Lit Festival, we had Joka Al-Hati, who's a prize-winning, Man Booker Prize winner for 2019, was a work written in Arabic, translated in English, and then won the prize. Now, so you have this fascinating mix with translations also now being acknowledged as part of world literature. Maniam, when you write, do you think about your audience? Do you think, oh, it's a Malaysian audience or a global audience? What do you seek to, and who do you seek to communicate with these realities in mind?
I think I seek to communicate with the poem itself. You see, go into it as deeply as I can, and put the intensity that the poem calls for, and if it is there, and I can feel it. If I can feel it in its completeness, then it ought to be felt by the reader in its completeness too. That, I think that is important. When you become overly conscious of your audience, there is a second false self working within you, and that false self spoils a story for you. Story.
But do you think a lot of young writers, because part of the aspiration is not simply to express yourself, but also to become famous, to kind of achieve success in the conventional ways of that? Do you think that's changed the market? I mean, when you look at what's out there in the world, especially coming from Malaysia, what do you see?
I think this, to want to get a name for themselves through poetry, I think that should be of secondary consideration, if anything at all. You see, if you are dealing with wood, just to cite a parallel example, if you're doing something with wood and you're creating a statue of this and that, or say, let's say a fertility queen, for example, you worry about that, and then the statue itself sort of expresses so much fullness and a readiness to be full and productive that you're amazed it came from you, and that's what it does. And that's what poetry should do itself. You don't think of the audience and then say, I'll put this in, I'll take that out, and I'll put another thing in, and so on. No, you can't do that.
Well, Maniam has now, of course, filled my brains with images of fertility goddesses, voluptuous and, ancient. So thank you very much for that. So where do you stand on this, Edwin, the world English issue?
I go by what E.M. Foster said, only connect. So I think the important...
Only connect.
Connect, yes. It comes from Howard's End, where two words, only connect, is used. And I believe that that's what we want to do as writers. We want to connect with the readers. But we don't think of our readers as our immediate readers, whether it's Malaysian or whatever. I think publishers worry about these things. Then they start putting glossaries and, they get in the way of the text. But as writers, you want to connect. And whether you connect with Malaysians or beyond Malaysia, I think that's well and good. So as a writer, I want to write something that means something to me. And I hope that my readers will connect in what I'm trying to convey in that piece of work.
Okay, well, last minute or so, you're both, you were an educator, or at least you retired some 20 years ago, but you were an educator and taught at University of Malaya for many years. You are an educator. How important, is this education business for you? I mean, in terms of dealing with English language, because there's so much talk about English, and it's business English, and English that's supposed to be functional without the kind of deep idiomatic wealth that both of you express in your
I think this is what I call a cliche approach. You see, a long time ago, it came in. You have to speak some. would-be dealer in something would learn the master's language because, you got to deal with him and later on deal with your customers. So you have to learn the language. You don't need that anymore, Let it wear off. It is already wearing off, but let it wear off completely and you function on your own. And then you'll find that, the poetry that's been waiting to come from you will come.
Okay, and Edwin, last words as an educator, in terms of the English language, what would you advise people?
Well, I think find a medium. And for me, if English is your medium, well and good. If Malay is also your medium, very well. There are few people who are bilingual. And I think Malaysians are beginning to look beyond the communicative function of the language. They're also beginning to appreciate the creative aspects. In fact, now we've got creative writing programs. Some people don't favor creative writing programs in universities, but I think parents are a bit more liberal, and so I think the use for English or how English is being used is broadening. The creative elements are, emerging. That's a good sign because we are not just talking about how to order food in a restaurant. We have gone beyond that kind of silliness.
But very quickly, are young people that you teach reading? Because we talk about writing here. Are they reading? Will they pick up a short story? Is a short story far too long for the new generation?
Yeah. I think they are reading, but what they're reading might be a bit worrying. A lot of reading goes on in, either in their phone or in an iPad, one of the devices. They are reading, but whether they're reading what we want them to read, that's the question. I still have students who say, I couldn't finish the novel for this week's class. But if you give them a novella, they might be able to. Reading is going on, but maybe the kind of reading that we want for academic purposes, not enough.
Okay, so a little bit distracted. I think we all are slightly distracted in this age. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the show. Remember, you can get this collection at any good bookstore. Ronggeng Ronggeng, Malaysian Short Stories, edited by Malachi Edwin Vethamani, and also this new collection by K.S. Maniam. It's called Two Heartbeats Away. That's all we have for Let's Talk this week. Come back next week and join me. I'm Sharaad Kuttan, only on Astro AWANI. Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.